Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another Talent Talks podcast. I'm your host, Scott Rivers, and I'm looking forward to another great show today. Before we get started with today's guest, let me remind you, you have access to a free book on our website. If you will go to cercatalent.com, highlight over the section that says Talent Review at the top, you'll see a drop down, and in that drop down, very clearly it says, discover the art of hiring A players. Just by going to that link, and I'll put it in the show notes, you can have access to this book. I'd love to get your feedback on this. Many people have said it's helpful. Many people have said that these are things that they have wanted to do when hiring, and they're going to start implementing them now. I think it's an opportunity to make sure you're getting the best players on your team starting today. As we jump into today's guest, we are talking to Sam Parker. Now, if that name doesn't ring a bell, I think this will. Sam is the author of 212, The Extra Degree. Awesome book. I've actually bought this program, and we're going to be using it in Cerca Talent at our end of year meeting, but really inspiring stuff. And as Sam will tell you, he's really there just as a reminder. He's also written a book called Lead Simply. Awesome information in this one. He talks today a little bit about Smile and Move. And then finally, as we jump into the last one, this one's one of my favorites. It's called Cross the Line. As with all of our guests, you can find Sam on LinkedIn at Sam Parker. You can also look him up on his website, which is inspireyourpeople.com, products to inspire your people. That is, in fact, where I ordered the 212 kits for my team, which we're going to be going through at our end of year meeting. What I really like about the kits is you've got different levels, which have different bits of information within them. I think all of them come with the books. All of them come with the little reminder cards, which I'll show you as part of this video. Some of them also come with presentations that can be used, as well as training books. The last thing that I want to show you is just one link. This is to Sam's blog. You'll find that at his website as well. He talks about this particular blog post as part of our discussions. And so I'll put the link in the show notes. Guys, as always, with all of our people that we interview on this show, I found him on LinkedIn. You too can find him on LinkedIn. If you find this to be useful, go ahead and reach out to Sam. Let him know that you heard about him and heard his message on our podcast here, the Talent Talks podcast with Scott Rivers. I would greatly appreciate it. I know he would as well. Last thing. And this is it, I promise. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor, go on to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts, give us a rating. I'll always take feedback, but if you don't have time for that, just give us a rating, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 stars. It helps us out a lot, and it helps to get this message to other people. So without further ado, everyone, please join me in welcoming Sam Parker. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Parker is on the show. I know that I gave an introduction to him prior to us jumping in, but this is someone who I've been learning a lot from. And in fact, before I even reached out to him, I sent him a message, or reached out to him about the show. I sent him a message and said, hey, I've gone out and purchased this for my team, and I'm really excited. It's no longer, as I mentioned to you earlier, Sam, it's not going to be a surprise anymore, but as a surprise to my team, your messages just resonate with me, and I think they're going to resonate with a lot of our listeners. So Sam, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on, Scott.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Let's talk a little bit about your background, and obviously we're going to jump into some of your work and hopefully a lot of your work, just to give people a feel for what it is that you do. But what got you into preparing all of this information and going out and training leaders to be better leaders today? How did you get into this?
Well, I kind of a variety of things that led to all of this, but really, I used to carry a bag in several different industries before starting this company back in 1998. I sold insurance products, office products. I sold pharmaceuticals, both branded and generic. I sold hip and knee implants. So I've been out there carrying a bag, and I had an idea for a radio format for salespeople, because I was in the car back then and listening to the tapes and always thought, man, it'd be great if there was a radio format that I could listen to while I'm driving around these different states in my territories.
Right.
And my business partner and I, over a breakfast one early morning, said, hey, what if we did it on the internet? And that led to us starting a site called justsell.com, which was, it still is operational right now, but it's not where we focus. But it was really tips and ideas on how to better manage your sales team, how to better sell, ask open-ended questions, listening better, all those types of tips. And that led to, we did that for several years. And then a few years after we started the business, really in 2001, I had breakfast with a guy, and it was very early in the morning, and we were talking about how to motivate salespeople was one of the conversations. And he shared with me how his boss used the boiling point as a metaphor to inspire people to try just a little bit harder. And that light bulb went off in my head. It connected with something I'd heard Brian Tracy talk several years before in DC when I was a young salesperson. And he talked about how in horse racing, the difference between a horse that finished first, the horse that finished second was usually rather small, but the earnings difference could be exponentially different. And I pulled those things together, and then I started writing down these essays and things and started to put them into this little book. And, that led to, so I self-published it. And then several years later, about, I would say in 2005, 2006, maybe, it started to really catch on as we've made a derivative version of it, a gift version of it with another organization. And there we are. And that's kind of the start of it. That's a long-winded way of explaining it.
No, that's great. I appreciate it. And, there aren't a lot of new ideas out there, but I think what you've done with 212 and Cross the Line and others is really just put it into an easy to understand format with some actions behind it, which I think can lead people to do some amazing things. And we'll go into that. It's interesting, kind of your concept on putting together these books. They're all very simple to read. They're all very short. You also, give some cue cards to go with that, which we'll walk through this in a minute. If I can make that, we'll walk through that in a minute. But, what's the reason for that? Is it that people have no time to read this, or is there some specific science behind the short books?
Well, I think it's a variety of things. I've always been writing short books. 212 was always a very short book. It's less than 4,000 words, which is, for most people, I was telling somebody the other day, I've listened to Stephen King's book on writing. He says he writes 2,000 words a day, so he could have a book every 2 days in my world. But some of my books go up to 6,000 and 8,000 words. But I do it because I want to give people their time back. It's not like I'd like to say a business book should not, I don't think, a business book should be something that gets us to the facts as quickly as possible and in the descending order of importance. So you'll notice in 212, for example, I start with that preamble because those are the first 25 words are the most important. So if you hear nothing other than those words, at least you walk away. In fact, I think I write that in the book. At least you walk away having that locked in, and it sticks and it shows up as action later. It really changes people's lives, both obviously on a professional level, but also on a personal level. It's very lucky to have been a part of it. Yeah. But it's about giving people the time back. I'm actually talking longer than I write right now. I try to, that's what the pocket cards are, for example. If you can't handle reading a short book, then we'll put it on the little pocket card.
And I love it. My team's going to love this as well. And we'll talk through this. Sam, what initially, got me engaged with you was some of your content that you put out on LinkedIn. And you've got a lot of information that you put out on both LinkedIn and YouTube, and you've even got some of your keynotes out on YouTube. How are you using LinkedIn today in order to expand and grow your message and your team?
Well, the truth is I'm not. So I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with this, but I personally am not a big fan. This is going to sound awful.
No, let's do it. I'm good.
All right. I'm not a big fan of LinkedIn.
Okay.
I find myself, it depends on what you do for a living, but for what I do for a living, you'd think that maybe that would translate. I should be out there, being a voice. You see some of these other trainers and people out there, John Maxwell things. You see Gary Vaynerchuk. You see these big names, Tony Robbins. Mm-hmm. Of course, they have teams probably doing that for them. We are a small team here, so I go that we have not been able to show that works for us in making a connection to people. It's very odd. Yeah. and I see LinkedIn, I'll post things every once in a while on LinkedIn just to keep out there a little bit. But when we had a social media effort here, a concentrated effort for a full year, we did not show that it produced much of a result.
Okay. So what are you doing to drive activity then? Is it you've got people that are making calls, you're smiling and dialing, or are you using word of mouth, or?
So it's predominantly email marketing for us.
Okay.
We have a large subscriber base that pays attention to us through email. We've not. It's a very odd thing. Our business. We're not in the self-help world, but some people think we are. We're really in the employee engagement business. We're really making these tools. Like you bought the 212 book for your team.
Right.
You're going to talk about it. We're really about giving the tools and the messages that help people see something in a different way so that it shows up as sustained action later and they can improve on something. So 212 is just another way of saying, try a little harder, care a little more, right? Give a little more attention, effort, and care, and you'll enjoy more as a result.
Right.
But we all need fresh ways to say things. And we provide those fresh ways to say things for leaders. However, some people use the 212 book and the Cross the Line book in particular as self-help, but that's not really the market that we go for. We go after businesses or organizations, I should say, because we have a lot of government organizations using us. We have, locally here, we're in Richmond, Virginia, we have the Virginia Department of Corrections, so all the prisons. We've got Raytheon missile systems. We've got literally thousands of public schools, K to 12 principals using our material. So we're about helping people care more about the work and each other and the people that they serve. And in that, hopefully better results will come from it. It's really about trying to help people have a more enjoyable day. That's what
cool.
We try to focus.
I like that. I think employee engagement right now is super important, right? People don't leave the company, they leave their boss or they leave their manager. But if you can...
I've done that a few times,
yes.
Way back in the day.
Yes. But I believe that. I know that we've heard other people say that, but I think that if you can get that engagement and you can continuously make your people better and make them enjoy what they're doing more and give them the skills they need to be successful, they want to stick around and be with you. So all of the things you're talking about make perfect sense to me.
Right. And I think in too many places that ball is dropped, and forgive me if you've read something that I'm about to say, because I've really written everything I've said. So it's a very strange thing, but, I talk with a lot of leaders and, when they talk, and I talk with a lot of people too, people who are not leaders. And so it's because I have both sides talking to me, and they tell me things that are very personal, and they tell me, but are related to work. So leaders, one of the biggest frustrations is their people not being engaged. Very much of the time it's that, or how do I help them? How do I help my people get more excited about work or coming to work? And so I ask a couple questions. I say, well, how many people on your team shouldn't be there? And almost inevitably somebody will say, oh, yeah, I got a few of those. And then I say, well, why do you have them there? Why are you allowing that to happen? And that gets a little uncomfortable. And then I say, now for the remaining people, what are you doing for them on a regular basis that helps everybody stay connected? And that answer is almost always nothing, or some vague kind of comment that they can't get to what they're actually doing. So what the question becomes, so you catch the situation, the problem, and then you go, okay, so well, how can they better connect with their people? And I think it's just like it's always been, even in this remote environment, we have isolation being a problem. I'm sure this is hitting morale on a huge level in many places.
Oh yeah.
But not everybody. Some people are having a wonderful time. This situation has, like Zoom. I mean, it's worked for them. This has been a good thing. But not, there's a lot of pain out there too, and there's a lot of loneliness. So I think it all comes back to, to me, everything comes down to connection. Connection with people, connection with ideas. Right? So you surround yourself with good people, you connect with those people. My leadership book, Lead Simply, the 3 tenets there are model, connect, involve. Model the behavior you want to see, connect with the people you lead, involve them as much as possible.
Right.
Model, connect, involve. You got to connect. And in so many places, so when I hear the other side, when people call me and say, I really wish my environment was something I could work in a place that is like in your books, if everybody did this stuff. And I'll say, well, why do you think you don't have an environment like that right now? And a lot of times they'll say they feel it's the boss who's not connecting with the team, and or not being kind with the team or pleasant with the team and doing all the things that they know they should be doing. So, I go, all this stuff is basic. We all need to remind. I live because of these messages, right?
Yeah.
This is how I eat, and I still need the reminders. I oftentimes say to, when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I'm a Post-it note. I'm just a reminder. I just try to remind people things that are important to their day, to having that more enjoyable day, in a way that sticks. And I learned that, I think, through 212, because that was a sticky thing. You hear that message, you don't forget it.
You're not going to forget that.
Right. With you for the rest of your life.
That's right.
And I'm getting notes. I get calls and notes from people who read it 15 years ago. It's still making a difference. And I'm talking about down to their marriage, and down to being a better parent. So that's neat. And that's the self-help side of our stuff. But really, the other stuff is about leaders and giving them the tools that help them have these conversations, help them connect better so that they can, again, have a more enjoyable day.
Sam, what do you think, especially today, what do you think leaders need to be doing a better job of in order to motivate their team, to get them through? Some of them are very lonely, like you mentioned. I think salespeople who come out of a sales environment who are now working from home,
yes,
they are lonely. They're missing that camaraderie of people in a bullpen, people that they're talking to, even some of their sales teams, even outside sales teams, they're still more remote today than they have been in the past. So what do you think leaders need to be doing a better job of in order to make bigger impacts with their teams today?
It's what I just said before. It's connecting. I think they need to be, and when I say a better job of connecting, obviously a better job of that includes, so how often they connect is a really important thing. And also watching their communication, making sure that their communication is received well. One of the things that I talk about quite a bit is communicating well is one of the kindest things we can do. And if we choose, if we choose to do it well, we can help somebody. It can be encouraging, it can be inspiring, it can help somebody be more resilient. We choose to do it in a mediocre way, it doesn't necessarily have an effect. And worse, of course, is if we're communicating something in a negative way and bringing somebody down. And as a leader, if you're going to have somebody on your team, if you're going to let them be on your team, you may as well do everything you can to help them stay positive and not pull them down. And I think too many people forget that. They think that they don't, in leadership roles, I think that they think they don't need to talk about that. That's ridiculous. That shouldn't be, these are adults. I shouldn't have to do that. And I go, that's just not true.
Yeah.
I tell you, I need it. I'm in the business, like I said, and I need it from people. I need encouragement from my colleagues, from my friends, and they need it from me. And we all need it from each other.
Yeah,
you got to connect more.
I agree with that. And it's so funny you say that because, I think back to, it's probably last month, I was on a call with my team and I was starting to just hear myself, because all of us are remote still. And so I'm getting calls. I'm doing my work. I'm doing the podcast. I'm getting calls from my team. And I noticed myself answering my phone with my team going, "Hey, what's up?" And it was just I actually told them, I said, "Guys, I'm sorry. I'm going to fix this. I'm here to help. And I want to be, your coach, I want to be the cheerleader, whatever it is you need. And I'm sorry, because I've heard myself answering the phone for you here lately, and I sound like a jerk. So I'm going to fix it." And I think they appreciated it. And I've really started focusing on that communication back with my team. And again, going back to the 212, after getting it and reading through it and preparing to present it to my team, it just makes it that much more important. Go the extra step, do that one extra thing. And for me, as it related to my team, it was making sure that when they call me, they feel comfortable and they're happy that they called me, as opposed to hearing this grumpy jerk on the other side of the phone.
Right. Right. And so I talk about the issue of being approachable. We have these opportunities where every day where we can choose. I call them 1 second opportunities. 1 second opportunities where we can choose to be encouraging, inspiring, positive, uplifting, being approachable. And the importance of approachable, because the reason I bring up approachable is because it invites relationships, it invites opportunities, it invites you hear things. If you're approachable, you're inviting somebody to say something to you rather than saying, don't tell me anything.
Right.
And if you're in a leadership role, obviously you want to hear things sooner rather than later. You want people to feel comfortable coming to you. I know there's a balance there, in terms of being interrupted too much as a leader. But I always find it funny, when leaders don't feel like they need to connect with their people, I go, what do you think you need to be doing? What is more, so you've already likely talked about strategy and come up with strategy, but a leader's job is connecting with their people. I mean, it's a primary thing, and you're helping out people. That's what it is. It's also if you have somebody who isn't performing well and can't perform well, it's also your job to make a change there and help the remaining team. But it's not just all like this fluffy, let's give each other a hug kind of thing and all this encouragement, inspiration. I mean, sometimes there's some tough talk too, but you can always do it in a kind way.
Yeah.
But the point is, you're still connecting, right? You're connecting. And so COVID-19, somebody asked me the other day, they said, what can we be doing? Like, I think you just asked it to me. What can we be doing in this remote environment? And I go, it's the same thing as we've always done. It's connect more with your people, and you can do it over the phone if you have to. You can do it over Zoom meetings or whatever your MS Teams or whatever you're using. But the point is, you don't need to be in front of somebody to connect with them. You can have a relationship with people and keep that relationship strong and hear things as long as you're having the conversations. Yeah. And, something maybe less obvious would be also how you communicate in your emails. Think about the recipient. If you're in a leadership role, when you land a sentence for somebody, I don't want to stress people out too much, but you can, if you just watch your phrasing, so that it's something, or if you have a high trust environment, which is ideal, if you can get to there where nobody takes offense to anything, which is a beautiful thing if that can happen. But
it's tough to find that environment.
Right. That's the idea. One of the, I'm reading a book now called The Four Agreements.
Okay.
I hadn't, I got turned on to it by a friend on Sunday and almost done. One of the four agreements is not to take anything personally. And my version of that is to just remove your ego. If you can subordinate your ego and just not attach all this meaning to what somebody says necessarily and go through all that, just remove all that, boy, the day would be much better.
It would. And I find, especially during this time, is just people need to have more empathy, right? Be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, because you have no idea what they're going through. And so I think you've said it, if you're kind in your communication and you think about that, but also have empathy behind it, you'll get a lot more done than you will by just thinking about yourself and just going after something.
Right. And I was going to say kindness almost always pays, but I don't know. I don't have any data on that, so maybe it doesn't. But I know that you have a choice. I think I heard John Meacham say this recently on a podcast I was listening to with him, the historian. You have a choice as to which side of history you want to be on. And he's, of course, a historian, so he's talking this big. But we also have a choice as to which side of history in our daily interactions we want to be on. So you got to decide, do you want to be the guy, do you want to be the person at the end of the day who was kind more often than not? Or do you want to be the hard driving person who at least got results, but hey, yeah, you were a jerk? I think you can get results, and you probably can get results by even being kinder. I think, I get a lot of people in a talk when I do a keynote back when the world was the way it was, better times. They'll bring up Steve Jobs, and they'll go, well, how do you explain Steve Jobs? He was not known to be a nice guy, but he got those wonderful results. And the key is, maybe he would have gotten better results, even better results, if he'd been a kinder guy. But the fact is, he was who he was. He got wonderful results, made some wonderful products that we all love. We're all using all over the place. And that's a neat thing.
And we spend stupid money for him. And
right. But he didn't need, he succeeded despite the fact that he was like that, not because of it. I think, or I like to think. Here's the deal. I know at the end of my life, I'd rather look back and say I was kinder more often than I wasn't, because, that's just, it's just a better place to be.
Yeah, I agree. So as we are obviously still in the middle of a pandemic, things are starting to spike in different areas. I feel like that a lot of people right now have some fear, trepidation. This is kind of a time to overcome the odds, if you will, which makes me think this is almost across the line movement or opportunity, not movement, but an opportunity to kind of talk to people about crossing the line in that book. I was not familiar with that, and maybe you can give us some backstory on that, Sam. But as I started looking at that, it just made sense to me of getting people to overcome fear and go ahead and make the move. You can be on this side, which are all of those leaders that you've talked about, or you could be on this side. Which side do you want to be on? What was it that led to that book, and how do you think that applies to people today?
Well, the premise of that book came out of after a soccer practice when I was coaching my 12-year-old son at the time, who's now 23. His team was being pretty apathetic at practice, and I mean, it came to me in the car. I said, look, man, everything's got a line. On one side of the line, good things happen. The other side, anyway, I built it into something. So for the people who are not familiar with Cross the Line, it's really, the premise is this. With everything, you have a line. And on one side of that line, there's a better chance for good things to happen. That's where you find the people you admire. The other side of the line, there's less of a chance where good things will happen. And with every line, you've got a choice. You want to cross the line or you don't. And you want that better shot at those meaningful things or you don't. So it's really interesting. And this was not planned. It just, after I laid it all down on paper, it just happened to be this way. But there's one line, there's two sides, there's three things that get in the way of crossing that line. And there's 4 ways to overcoming it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a lot of my work. Like I said, I feel lucky to be a part of it. It's something that for me, it's been something that I discover. Actually, Stephen King talks about it. He looks at his stories as they're fossils, and he's uncovering these things, his stories. And I see it the same way. Something that pops out of my mouth that I like, and I say, like, we have a message called "Work Kindly," for example. Mm-hmm. It's this. We only have a pocket card. It's not a book yet, but that line, "Be a better part of someone's day." I said that on a stage once, and I thought, wow, that's interesting. And I said, how can you be a better part of someone's day? What's the best thing you could possibly do? And I think everything starts with work. Right. Work is the most, it sounds cold, but work is the most important thing. Work is contribution, work is care. Work, and my favorite quote, 5 words, work is love made visible. Imagine a world where people thought that way about their work. That's where everything begins. You enjoy, this technology is all happening because somebody gave a deep level of care to their work and created something where we're talking like this and, over states, however many thousands of miles. It's just fantastic. And it all happened from work. So you do your work, but then the key is, and do it kindly. So work kindly. And then we build a brand around it and the whole thing. And what we're trying to do is make it sticky so that people recall these things. So it stays with them. And so it shows up as sustained action. And that's the key, sustained action, not just action. When I talk with groups, even people who are listening to this podcast, the truth is all of this is a joint effort between people. Mm-hmm. You and I are having this conversation. Hopefully some people hear it. It becomes valuable to them. Some of these nuggets become valuable to them. They can use it to inspire their people, inspire themselves. It's a wonderful thing. And, but the key is, how does it stay? And I always say it stays through solid and ongoing reinforcement. internally and externally. So it means within ourselves as individuals and amongst ourselves as peers. And we have to remember that it's solid and ongoing reinforcement. That need never, ever, ever ends. It just doesn't. Like I said earlier, I am 55 years old and I still get a lot of things wrong that I know I shouldn't do. You know,
Right.
I shouldn't talk to my wife that way. I shouldn't talk to a teammate that way. But I lose, you know, so I have to get back in the moment. So reminding ourselves, continually reminding ourselves of things and accepting that need for that solid and ongoing reinforcement. I think that's key. And I think that's where leaders consistently drop the ball.
Okay.
They think that too many leaders, I think that they don't need to say that again. And I get it because it's exhausting, right?
Of course.
I shouldn't need to tell you that again. And that's true. If you have a person who, you know, is a primary thing, like a salesperson who's not making the calls, not making the connections, you shouldn't have to tell them certain things too many times because that's their profession.
Of course.
But there are other things that are ongoing, you know, and helping people be resilient, for example. You ever thought about that? Like, how many people think about what does it take to be resilient? Have you, I mean,
I haven't, but I mean, I think where resilience comes from, for me at least, and I think a lot of people, it's being a part of team sports and, you know, athletic background, starting companies, getting your teeth kicked in, you know, all of that stuff kind of builds resilience. But
yes.
if there's a better way to teach it, I'm in.
Well, one of the things I think is important on resilience is to remember, or at least I find this, there's 4 points to resilience that I've used that have been really helpful to me and also helpful to the people that I've shared it with.
Okay.
It starts with being results focused.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just drop your ego, get yourself. It's kind of like that 4 agreements thing I said earlier. Don't think about you right now. Just think about the result you're going for. So be results focused. And when you make a mistake, just accept it as tuition for succeeding later. Try to learn
Right.
what you can from whatever that is. But then the key is to keep moving, right? Keep moving smarter as a result of what you learn from your lesson. And then the 4th point is remind and encourage yourself and the people around you of the first 3 points, because you're going to be back here again, right? So there's no cute acronym here, but it's a great 4 points if you can internalize it to recall. And the key is removing yourself from it, not taking things personally, and just going, okay, what can I learn from this and how can I move on smarter?
Yeah.
And then again, reminding ourselves and encouraging ourselves and the people around us to do the same thing. That's resilience. But the key is also bouncing back faster, because you're probably going to bounce back. It's just like forgiveness. You're probably going to forgive people, so you may as well do it sooner. I know there are extremes.
Yes,
like
there are
extremes where you won't forgive somebody, and that's a tragedy when it's that extreme, and also where you won't bounce back. There are horrible things that people can't bounce back from. Mm-hmm. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the bulk of our day. Most of us are going to bounce back anyway, so you may as well do it faster. And most of us are going to forgive, so you may as well do it quicker. And when people minimize this at work, especially that forgiveness, that gets in the way of a lot of good work happening. The grudges and the resentment and the things that get in the way of work. Oh my gosh, we could cure diseases and we could feed the planet if we could just get out of the way of ourselves.
Yeah, I like how you phrase that. I think for me, talking about resilience, you know, I always tell my team, and I've always told people that failure is no problem, as long as you learn from it. The only time that you truly fail is if you don't learn from something and you keep trying to do the same thing. Right? You've got to learn, fail forward, fail fast, fail forward, but it's only failure if you don't learn from it. So I appreciate what you said, for sure. That's awesome. What I would like to do, Sam, you talked earlier about the 3 things that keep people from crossing the line. What are those 3 things? One of them has to be fear, right? I talk about fear a lot and how that's stifling and keeps you from being successful. Is that one of them?
That's actually, it's funny. I'm trying to think how it might be one of them. Yeah, I guess that could fall into, the first one, which is just the natural hurdles and obstacles that we face. So fear, I think, would fall into that fear of failure. But that's interesting. I don't think I have addressed that. So I'm a little concerned that I have a flaw in it at this point. But
if I could be a co-author on the next book, let me know. I'm happy to jump in.
But then so it's the obvious hurdles and the obstacles that'll get in the way of you making something happen. And then there's people.
Okay.
So there's the things, and then there's the people. And the people are the naysayers. The people are the people who would prefer you didn't succeed. They get in the way of you by not encouraging you or withholding encouragement at the right time or whatever it might be. And inside of people also is yourself. And maybe that's where fear would fall, because maybe you tell yourself you're not deserving of that, or you don't want to take that risk or whatever it is. So you have the things, the actual things that make the work difficult, the obstacle, and then you have the people, and then you ultimately have the work that you might not put in because of the first two things.
Right.
So you may get all bogged down with, I can't do it because of the lack of this resource or that, or this thing's in the way, or that guy's doing this and I can't do that. Or it might be you got people telling you bad stuff, or you tell yourself the bad stuff. And so you just go, I'm not even going to put in the effort. And that's the third thing. You don't put in the work.
Right.
And then you overcome it by choosing to commit. You work hard and you focus and you bounce back when things get tough. And that's it. Those are your 4 points. And inside of there, the work hard and the focus is really a 212 message. Sometimes it's those small things that can have the biggest impact, and you have to remember that. Balance, obviously, is that you could end up worrying too much about small things that don't matter. And that's where things get tough, and I'm guilty of that sometimes. I get bogged down in the details, and I play that 212 message in my head, and I go, got to pay attention. And I find out, no, I didn't have to. That wasn't important.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. Here, I'm going to use a little product placement here real quick, if you don't mind.
Oh, thank you. I'll do the same. I'll hold. There
you go. Rise and reach.
Yeah, I use this one. This is actually, so you're always rising and reaching. You're rising from the bad, you're reaching in the good. And reaching is really kind of a 212 message too, because you don't want to rest in complacency. You want to be, once you do something well, you want to ask what's next, right? That's the reach part. So you want to rise from the bad, reaching the good.
That's cool.
I think that would have been in 212 if I had written it, if I'd come up with it sooner, but I didn't. So.
Well, and I was going to ask you if there's an update to 212 that's coming out or anything else, but I want to read this real quick. And what I'm doing is I'm looking, this is a cue card that Sam sends out. I'll have to hide my face for that to zoom in. The cue card that Sam sends out for teams when they order the 212, the extra degree, you get the books, the cards. I ordered it, I believe, with the presentation, and there's something else with it. But on the back of this card, it says, the power of extra effort and care, 2 extra acts of kindness weekly. And then there's some information below that. Then 15 extra minutes a day. That creates over 90 hours a year for what's most important to you. 1 extra contact daily sparks more than 180 personal connections every 6 months. And 2 extra risks taken each week leads to over 100 opportunities annually for excitement and possibility. B212.
Yeah.
Awesome. My team is going to get this. They're going to love it. Sam, tell us where we can find more information about you, and tell us more about inspireyourpeople.com. Or is that it?
I mean, I've pretty much told you everything, I think, but you can find us on the web at inspireyourpeople.com, and there's all kinds of information on this site about me and the messages that we produce here and have created for leaders. Yeah. Very easy to find, and if you can't remember inspireyourpeople.com, if you do Sam and the number 212, I'm all over the place.
Yes, you are. I just based upon the quality of the material and the cost of the material for me to get it for my team, I mean, I find it to be so reasonable. It makes sense. I would pay for this for my team, even if it wasn't my team or my company, right? It just makes sense for me. And I think other people will say the same thing. For people to reach out or connect with you, do they go to the website, or do you want to send them an email, or just send them to LinkedIn? What works best?
They can go to the website. They can do it however they want. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm everywhere. But most of the attention, our relationship is primarily with our subscribers. You can sign up for our email newsletters. That keeps you in tune with some of the thinking that I do and some of the material that we produce. Okay. And then ideas on how to use that material. And then obviously you told us earlier you're not super active as a company on LinkedIn, but yet that is how I found you. So it's definitely a way to reach out to you and connect. Right. And then there's always that. And then I have to think, because we have all kinds of examples where, I find someplace that I didn't think mattered ends up mattering, and maybe it does at times. And it's just, like I said, I don't know. It just seems like sometimes it depends on what you do for a living.
Of course.
In your world, I can see exactly why you would use it, and it makes complete sense. And even in mine, you might say you'd use it, but one of the things that people use our material for, they have to come to the conclusion themselves to use this kind of material. There's a lot of leaders out there who don't think they need anything, and also have no interest in using anything because they're not connecting with their people. So we try to find people who are active. We'll have people come and they'll buy enormous amounts. We'll have a company buy 500 books in one shot, and we never talk to them.
Right.
And so did we do that? I don't think so. They came to the conclusion on their own. They had a conversation and they decided as a team, hey, this is something we can use to make our team, help our team have a better day. And so they decided to do it. If I run an ad, sure, but so we could go into conversion marketing, but that's not why we're here.
We'll do that on another one.
Yeah.
Sam, we're all about talent here. That's what we really focus on. So as you are working with your clients and advising them on how to attract, engage, and retain talent, what is it that you're telling them? What advice do you give them, or maybe what tools do you give them to help do that?
Well, so where we can help with that is in the soft skill area, because we're about inspiration and motivation. So they already know, depending on what their type of person they're trying to hire, they already know they want this skill set and this experience level or whatever that might be for their environment. But what I think is equally important, although actually maybe not equally important, the most important thing, I always say the most important thing, we even have a pocket card on it. The most important thing is to do you deliver? Do others enjoy working with you? And am I growing? So I personally, when we hire people, will look for that. Do I have a person in front of me? Obviously. So can they deliver? Number one, right? Everybody knows that. But I need somebody who can deliver and be a part of a team, can be a colleague, can be an encourager, right? An inspiration rather than a drain on people. Yeah. So I watch for those things. That's where we can help, I think. And one of the suggestions, it's been popular for a lot of our customers, is we'll suggest taking one of our books. In particular, we'll use my Smile and Move book because it's about attitude and action. And we'll say, give this book to somebody that you're going to have back for, in this environment, send it to them, but that you're going to have back for a second interview, and ask them to read it. And then you have a discussion around the points, because there's 5 ways to smile, there's 4 ways to move. And in that discussion, and we have a whole blog on this, on how to do this on our site, but in that discussion, it'll be very telling. You'll start to see and hopefully hear things that will either be helpful to you, where you feel positive about this person being able to be an inspiration and encouragement, a good soft skills person at the office or on the team, or not. And some of those things might show. And it's really, maybe you don't do that with an executive level hire or something like that, but you're doing it, it depends on where you are. But you also need to use our material. You could use whatever's important to you. I mean, you could use a magazine article. The important thing is having more of a conversation and putting more work into that conversation at the front end around what's important after you've decided that they have the skill set. Because all of us have been there with somebody who has a wonderful skill set, and then they have to be tolerated, which is, of course, an ugly thing to have to. It's an ugly word, tolerate.
It's not a good thing for a team, that's for sure, and it doesn't lead to a group all functioning in a way that's going to be successful for that organization. So I definitely like what you're saying.
And very few people really are that special, despite what they think. And I get it that there definitely are some people, but it's not, it's not as many as we think.
Well, and Sam, we've all done it, right? We've all held on to somebody that was not good for the group or the organization because they were producing. And in the end, it hurts everyone.
Yes.
It really does. Including
the customer or whoever you serve.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Well, Sam, I really appreciate you being on the show today. I know people got a lot out of it. I'm going to put a lot of information in the show notes. I'll put links to your stuff in the show notes. I'll find that blog post that you mentioned as well, and I'll make sure that that's included also.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everyone. This has been another Talent Talks podcast. Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
You've just listened to another Talent Talks podcast with your host, Scott Rivers. Today's guest, Sam Parker. I hope you found that useful. I know that there's some takeaways that each and every one of you can use with your teams in order to get and have better communication. Please reach out to Sam if you haven't already on LinkedIn. Let him know you found out about him through the Talent Talks podcast. If you get an opportunity, and I suggest you do, go ahead and jump out to his website and find something that would be useful for your team. Again, inspireyourpeople.com is where you're going to find that information. I'm going back to buy some more stuff. I'm telling you, this podcast is costing me money, but I'm loving it and I'm loving the people. And I think we're giving great value to those of you out there right now during COVID-19. I look forward to seeing you next time on the Talent Talks podcast. Until next time, everyone, take care.